All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chopping It Up with P. Scott. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today is Tuesday, December 12th. Glad to have you back with us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the YouTube channel as well. Glad we saw a boost in the spikes of people following now. It still ain't nothing because I don't do this very often. But we're here to try to give you guys as many opportunities to listen and or watch the show as possible. As you can see, if you are following through either Facebook Live or the YouTube channel, we have a lot of things to get on the docket. Go ahead and throw your comments into the chat as well. We're going to start with Shohei Ohtani signing a bonkers deal. Some of us saw it coming, some of us didn't. There's also some caveats and some weird deferments. Is that a cheat code? Or is everybody being a little bit too outlandish with what they're trying to accomplish? Don't let the Bills and Chiefs game, don't let it sway your perspective on either team. The Lions continue to lion. We got MICKEYMOUSC in-season tournament apparently. Just random stuff. Throw it in the chat. We'll go ahead and get to it when we can. Sorry, I was filibustering because I had a little bit of a tech situation I had to handle real quick. Anyway, so Shohei Ohtani signs this bonkers deal, and through most MLB circles, it was projected that he would get a $500 million contract, but it was supposed to be essentially 10 years, $500 million, and that's what everybody was reporting. Expect $500 million and expect a 10-year deal. And what's wild is it's twice as much, like the length of the contract is 20 years and not 10. And he's technically losing, if you're going by the metrics of you're expecting $500 million and he's getting $700 million, but the actual contract length itself is twice as long, it makes it look like he's losing out on money. But when you really break this thing down, and I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit more information on this than just throwing it out there. And when I see things in real time, I want to see what's actually happening. So when Ohtani signed this deal, and I saw it was $2 million a year for 10 years, my initial thought process was, dude, you live in California. You can still live on $2 million a year for your gross income. This seems like it's pretty short-sighted on your part. The Dodgers paying him $68 million a year, technically, for the back end of that 10-year seems pretty short-sighted on their end as well. And I could be wrong. We'll see how these things work out. But when I look at this thing and when I get a little bit more information on it, what I see is $2 million a year for 10 years. As a professional baseball player of Ohtani's caliber, seems like he's kind of getting the short end of the stick, right? But then you take into consideration, he's supposed to get somewhere around $50 million a year in endorsements. And that's, I would imagine, most likely not just in America. Ichiro is probably the most famous Japanese player ever to play baseball here. But Ohtani is either right there with him, or you could consider him to be, I don't want to say better, because Ichiro played a long time, had a great career here as well as over in Japan, and he got a late start getting over here. But the endorsement money, I don't believe that everything that he's getting is not just through the avenue of American currency. But the first place that we went to as fans, and anybody who is trying to dissect the monetary value and contracts of professional athletes, is, oh, well, that's all he wants to do is win. I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure that there's part of it to it, because the Japanese culture is so much embedded of like not being lazy, and they're not. We as Americans usually tend to be that way. So on its face, when you say He's making $2 million a year for 10 years. That's a that's a ridiculous pay cut based on what the talent that he exudes and what he actually shows. That's not worth $2 million a year in professional sports, much less baseball that doesn't even have a salary cap. He's the 17th highest paid player on the Dodgers right now. Shohei Ohtani, who is considered the best overall baseball player in MLB right now. So that just right there, it kind of rose a red flag to me. Is there more to it than that? Obviously, the endorsement money we just talked about. But then you start thinking about what he's getting paid on the back end. And I've been telling people this forever, and nobody wants to listen to me. Baseball needs to fix this because the deferred payments on well, I haven't even necessarily said that. What I have been perpetuating is that MLB, what they like to do is they want to defer the money out as long as they can for whatever they got to do. If I don't have to pay you right now, I won't. That's the whole reason why Bobby Bonilla still. Ken Griffey Jr. is going to make more money this year than Shohei Ohtani. Chris Davis is going to make almost $10 million this year because the players union is so strong in baseball. But we can't just dumb this thing down to the lowest common denominator of winner guy or just maybe there's an athlete who doesn't care about the money. $68 million per year when you reach 40, that makes me think otherwise. But again, when it comes back to Bobby Bonilla and it comes back to Ken Griffey Jr., I didn't realize this initially. If you defer payments or your income past 10 years or more, then you can claim the taxes in the state that you live and not the state that you actually collect the income from. And that's always been the biggest argument, right? We've seen it with Tyreek Hill. He's claimed that the Jets have offered him $8 million a year more, but didn't want to go there just because of the culture. It's also the state tax. There's only a handful of the states in the United States that don't have state taxes. Even in Alaska, like we technically have one, but it caps at like $12.50. It's really not even an argument point when it comes to that tax. There's other things, the cost of living, the cost of getting goods and services up here as opposed to other places, and even other certain locations in Alaska. It's even harder to get those things. And it's not even necessarily so much inflation, it's just the ability to get those goods there. But that's neither here nor there. That was more of like a personal anecdote. But to think that Tyreek Hill only went to Miami just because he thought it was a better situation, no, you have to keep more money. And Shohei is it feels like he's going to do the same thing because I didn't realize that was that certain tax break. If his contract is 20 years, and the other thing that we don't understand about these situations is that we're not in the room with these organizations, these teams, clubhouse, because it's baseball right now. That's the topic, is we don't know if there actually was enough friction for Shohei to not actually sign with the Dodgers, because that's what was leaked. That's what was reported, right? It was also reported he was only supposed to get like a $500 million contract. I say only in quotation marks, but that was the thing. He's only supposed to get $500 million. And he's not even pitching next year. But he got $700 million. There are so many things that we don't know what's going on in these rooms, in these conversations. Maybe something was leaked that if you say anything, he doesn't want to play for the Dodgers. Well, obviously he still did. And the $68 million per year deferment money, could that be a cheat code going forward? It could be. And a lot of people want there to be a salary cap in Major League Baseball. But if you really dive into this a little bit more, it does feel like this could be good for essentially everybody. because Major League Baseball does have revenue sharing. So if Shohei is playing if he's playing for the Dodgers and the Dodgers are playing a road game, the money that is going to be collected over the entire season, like that's what the collective bargaining agreement with them and the shared revenue is. If you don't make, if you're way down here in revenue sales, they share it. That's why the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, they hate that because they have to give money to these teams with low payrolls. But the teams that don't have money like it. So him signing this deal for $700 million benefits quite literally everybody. But I do find it kind of odd when it comes to the Dodgers. $68 million for 10 years is ridiculous. Like, this isn't a Bobby Bonilla deal where you're paying $1.2 million or something like that every single year. That's $68 million. Yes, you're saving it up front. But the altruism that we're trying to put on Shohei of, well, he just wants to win. No, what he wants to do is get paid in the back end and not to pay taxes on the absurd amount of money that he's going to get. And I don't necessarily blame him for it. But when you start lining these things up, we can't just, as sports fans, we can't just dumb this down to the fact of, well, he must just only want to win. No, he wants to win now. And also, Major League Baseball, or the owners at least, don't want to pay anybody right now either. They want to push these things out. But what I'm worried about and why I say it might be short-sighted on the Dodgers side is $68 million is a lot of money to pay per year to somebody that you're not getting anybody from then. So what you better do is you better cash in now. You better sell out every damn game. You better make like multiple postseason runs because at that point in time, you're going to have to find a way to pay this guy. And I know the money in baseball is ridiculous. In pro sports across the landscape, it doesn't matter what sport is really. The money is ridiculous. But with the Dodgers, you better get this money up front because that's what you're paying for. Well, it's technically what you're not paying for. You're not paying for Ohtani now. But a 20-year contract, this is the time. This is your window. You better win at least 3 championships, 3 World Series within the first 10 years when you're only paying him $10 or $2 million a year, as opposed to 68, the rest of it. It's just it's a wild thing. All I know is this guy's going to get after. And I'm not mad at him for it, but this can be a situation where both avenues are correct and incorrect. It really depends on what Shohei's back end of his career, what he's trying to accomplish because of just the tax implications. If he's going to keep staying in Los Angeles, I don't know if I would have taken $2 million a year and then 68 on the back end just to have them tax me to lose 60% of my money. But if his plan is to move and do the Bobby Bonilla deal and move to Florida, then maybe it works out. But I guess that part is a conversation for another day. So we had this in-season tournament that wrapped up. And obviously, the Lakers are in-season tournament champions. And when I say I didn't watch, it's not because I wasn't interested. I have very little time Monday through Friday. I know some Sunday obviously is also still ran by football. I just didn't have it in me to watch these games just because. But you can see just by the overall numbers of people watching on a Sunday, the in-season tournament worked to a degree. When you get in this perspective of it's an in-season tournament, it's a Mickey Mouse trophy, it's this and that, the other. It's the first time it happened. The Lakers won. LeBron's obviously on the Lakers. And this is where this thing gets dumbed down to is it's another thing that LeBron can claim that Michael Jordan didn't, blah, blah, blah. It's stupid for that argument. But it served its purpose. The purpose of the in-season tournament was to get players more engaged, and fans more engaged. It accomplished both things. Now, I'm sure there was other underlying things that they wanted to have happen as well, but between those two objectives, check mark, check mark. Will the in-season tournament always stick around? I don't know. I honestly can't tell you if it's going to be something that's going to be a new staple of the NBA. But anytime that there is change and we start to get to a certain demographic, change is just not part of the equation anymore. So when the 3-point line was a thing, oh, well, what about the other scoring leaders? All right, man. What about hand checking? What? There's some, the rules evolve, the sport evolves, the way that we consume it evolves. This thing may not last. And I'm okay if it does or doesn't. I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about me. I know that just by looking behind me, if you're watching either live on the Facebook Live or on YouTube, you'll know that behind me stands essentially a shrine of Buffalo Bills stuff. But I don't get that wrapped up in it anymore. I wasn't even really like a Bills fan. I was a Jim Kelly fan. I was born May 12th. I learned about him when I was 5, and he wore number 12. And my legal first name is James. That's where it started. I was a Jim Kelly fan, not a Bills fan, but it morphed into that. And what I've been able to kind of do is disassociate myself with the overall fandom of us just dumbing this down to, well, what does it matter? Why can't you just enjoy it, dog? The in-season tournament has done something that NBA fans have been clamoring for forever. And they always, when you're in that kind of business situation, you're in a lose-lose situation. Because the fans who, like, again, with me being in Alaska, you don't have to worry about me going to any type of game. I'm not flying in and out of Alaska to go watch anybody play. But from the fan perspective, it becomes, wait, so you mean that I have to pay more money for you to make more money for you to care about playing? But you're already watching or going to the games anyways with load man. Like, you can't, everybody just wants to complain about something. But at least at this point in time, you've got something that matters in the moment, at least. But the biggest backlash is the fact that it's just like, oh, it's LeBron. And the reason I've been saying this forever, the only reason why people get so worked up in the MJ LeBron timeline is just flooded with just that same just Neanderthal sports bullshit, is because he's the only person who kind of gets in the way of the MJ debate. That's it, man. If anybody else, if the Pacers would have won that, it would have been, oh, LeBron can't even win like an in-season tournament. It's just, that's how good the guy is. But what we need to do, and this, you can be a LeBron fan, you can be an MJ fan. It doesn't matter. It just bugs the hell out of me that we can't even as a society believe that there can be two really, 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 really good players and not acknowledge the greatness of one while just dismissing the greatness of the other. So the Bills and Chiefs had an interesting ending to their game on Sunday. And Kadarius Toney was, you can get mad all you want to that Kadarius Toney was or wasn't offsides. He was, but apparently he was offsides like 6, 7, 8 times, and it was never called. It also depends on your camera angle, depends on how bitter you are as a Bills fan or a Chiefs fan or a Dolphins fan or anybody else. When I'm looking at this in its entirety, stop that 6-inch difference between Kadarius Toney being offsides or being onsides does not matter in the grand scheme of things. Buffalo still did the exact same thing that Buffalo does every single game. They give up big plays, they play with their food, and they let teams back in. This doesn't mean that Buffalo is any better. Just because they beat Kansas City doesn't mean that they're that much better than them. It doesn't even really mean that I think that much less of Patrick Mahomes or just Kansas City and their roster in its entirety. It's another big play with not a lot of time left that once again, the Bills come out and just the bed. We try to microanalyze this thing to such a degree of if you lose, you're bad. That's not really how that works. Bad teams beat great teams every once in a while. Said it before, I'll say it again. That's why we have odds. You're not likely to, but you can. And we use any given Sunday as kind of the lazy benchmark of trying to break down somebody else even further because there's only 17 games. So when I look at Buffalo and Kansas City right now, I'm glad in a way that Miami lost. I'm glad in the way that Kansas City lost as well. But Buffalo's not doing anything in the playoffs anyways. It's just going to be another early exit. And all you're doing is to go back to the deferment of payment. You're just deferring and prolonging what's going to actually happen if you're the Bills. Early season exit again. If you even make it to the playoffs, your chances are better now. And to go off on a tangent for a moment, I know that I rub Bills fans the wrong way because it doesn't look like I actually care about them. I'm only talking about the downside of them. But my job in the podcast space is not to be a Bills homer podcast. I haven't built it around that. That isn't who I am. I'm going to tell you what I see. I'm going to tell you what I know. Josh Allen makes too many mistakes, but as long as you have him, you always have a chance. And I've accepted that. You always have a chance. But I've said before and I'll say it again. I've been hurt too many times. You can't hurt me anymore. You know, like I've seen this movie too many times. I've read this book too many times, even though I don't like reading because reading's lame. I'll watch the movie though, or I'll watch the Netflix series because I don't mind watching. For some reason, we and me, even most specifically, I don't like movies, but I'll watch 2 hours of a Netflix series right in a row. Maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just you putting that line of demarcation every 28 and a half minutes and I get that intro to kind of like recalibrate myself. Maybe that's what it is with my short attention span. But regardless, to get back on point, the Bills are still the Bills. They still give up big plays, and McDermott's the one who is like, he's firing dudes left and right. He's the one taking over the play calling on the defensive side. And that 6 inches does not matter to me. It just doesn't. This happens all the time. In late time situations, that defense fails every single time. Didn't matter if it was Leslie Frazier. Doesn't matter if it's Sean McDermott. That Bills defense will fail you, and they've failed the fans. I'm not going to get into too much. If you want to go back and like actually listen to the recap of what I actually believe, just the last episode, I dove further into it. So I'm not going to do it again. But you can't do that. You can't just say that the Bills are definitively better than the Chiefs because they won on a small technicality. They still should have lost that game, in my opinion. But the other thing, too, the title of this episode is The Stugotz is Strong in Everybody. And the reason why is because you can. If you have a bajillion different takes, and you just throw it out into the universe, you can say, well, see, I was right here. I was wrong a bunch. Well, I was wrong a bunch of other times, but don't no, I was first to this one. And I saw that and I got into like, I don't want to say an altercation because it's really not that serious, but I thought it was a fun interaction for the most part was somebody who is a Broncos fan. I got in a little bit of a back and forth with them because with the Chiefs losing, this is what happens. And him saying, well, see, I've been telling people if you just shut down Kelsey, Mahomes is overrated. So there's this weird thing called Travis Kelsey's been really good for a really long time. And nobody's really been able to shut him down. That Kelsey Mahomes connection has been pretty absurd. And also, I'm not really entirely certain if you were paying attention to the previous year where Tyreek Hill wasn't there. And the only real difference was you didn't have Rice, but you had Valdez Scantling, which isn't like a huge upgrade or deterioration, however you want to look at it from either side of it. And they still win a Super Bowl. But how can you come up with this easy plan of, well, if you just shut down Kelsey, you think you're the first person to ever say, shut down Travis Kelsey? No, we all think that. Yeah, take him away. But the difference was beforehand, they still had Tyreek Hill, and you couldn't really just, you had to kind of pick your poison. But even last year, when they didn't have Tyreek, Kelsey was a monster. He's had a little bit more of an injury problem this year, but even then, I wouldn't call it a problem. But he's what, 34? And this is what I don't think that people understand either is that Travis Kelsey is the same age as Rob Gronkowski, and Gronkowski's been at the league for a couple of years now. Gronkowski feels like he's 48, but they're the same age, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But apparently, if you just throw enough things out into the universe and you hit on it once every 7 years, I guess you are the GOAT at that take. That's me being money with mine. And also me being bad at this because I have like 19 different things I'm trying to do at once. All right. Eagles fans, you guys need to step up and not be so sensitive. You're going to be okay. I have this weird feeling when it comes to Philly, to me, is still one of the best teams in the NFL. The defense hasn't been good. They give up a lot of passing yards, especially. They also have some new team. What I almost kind of equate this Eagles team to is remember the dream team that they had like a decade ago where it had like Vince Young. Yeah, did they sign Vince Young and then Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy, and we just thought this is going to be the next replication of this is the squad. How are they ever going to lose? It almost feels like they're trying to replicate that on the defensive side of the ball. And maybe you just need a little bit of help. And it's not even just help as far as the offense, because the offense does need to get better. That defense has played a lot of snaps, but they also have a lot of new guys. Ndamukong Suh has actually been thinking about signing there as well. And they also just signed Shaq Leonard as well. When you have that many moving parts, it's almost like you're just trying to chase something. Which obviously, with you being in the Super Bowl last year, it makes sense that you would want to chase that again. And you drastic teams, I say this about people more than anything else. Drastic people do drastic things. The Eagles only have one Super Bowl. They were just in one last year, and people thought that you shouldn't have been there last year. You got off to a hot start this year. And now we're right back to are you overrated? I still like the team in its entirety. But they got mollywopped again by Dallas. They got mollywopped by San Francisco. But they've had a pretty rough stretch. And that's where I understand like college football, there's the style points, right? You have to win a certain way by a certain amount of points against certain other good teams, and it depends on when you win. It depends on when you lose. The NFL doesn't work that way. It's literally just a win-loss as far as how we evaluate where you should be as far as your seating is concerned. The NFL works completely different than college football. I'm just looking at this as, yes, I understand they're all pro teams, but Philly had a really rough run the last month and a half. So when you play teams like Kansas City and Buffalo and San Francisco and Dallas, that month to 5 weeks is going to be a little bit more difficult than the rest of the schedule. Yes, it's pro football. Yes, anybody can be anybody. And we talked about this earlier. That's why there's odds. Anybody can beat anybody. There's a reason why we don't think that you will. Philadelphia, to me, just feels like they want to be as prepared as possible going into the playoffs. Because when you look at this, it really right now is a 3-team race. It's Philly, it's Dallas, and it's San Francisco in the NFC. That's it. You can go ahead and take Detroit out of it. I gave Detroit a little bit too much love, a little bit too early. I don't usually do that. But I gave Detroit a little bit more love. In the last month, they have not looked good at all. They've gone back to the same Lions, and Jared Goff has gone back to the same Jared Goff because he hasn't changed. Just some years are better. But he overall he's not the caliber quarterback that you need. So Detroit, to me, has moved out of that. It's a 3-team race. So for Philadelphia, maybe they're just saying, hey, let's just stay ahead of Dallas. Like, we're okay with losing this game. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. It's a conspiracy theory. Not even really conspiracy theory when you think about it. But there are times where you're okay kind of taking an L if you know that there are certain injuries. Because this is something, that I talk about every once in a while. It's like, we're not in these locker rooms. We don't know what's actually going on. So there might be an injury that is worse to another player. You can go, the bye week is done. We got to get this guy healthy. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But the Eagles, they've been good the last 2 years. But when I look at the actual landscape of that conference, San Francisco, and I will not bow down from this. When San Francisco is 100% healthy, that's the best team in the NFL. You're not going to get any argument from me. Top to bottom, everybody's on the same page and everybody is actually healthy. San Francisco is great. And I didn't realize this because I brought up a couple times. Brock Purdy to me is not a bad quarterback. But anytime you have a criticism of anybody, what we want to do is just go ahead and switch it to, well, you don't think he's good at all. No, you can just you can have criticism. And that's everything that I've seen with Brock. When you see the Niners, when they have Brock, McCaffrey, and Debo, they're 17-0. That's a pretty big sample size. So when you have the entire Monstars squad with you, yeah, that would make sense. Which is one of the reasons why I don't think that Brock Purdy is on that elite level yet. But I know that San Francisco is a ridiculous squad. And if they stay together, if they stay healthy, that team should win the Super Bowl this year. But if one of those guys is out, I don't have a whole lot of faith in him. But the Niners are back to looking like the best team in football. And this is why I try to tell you guys need to slow down with your overreactions. It was the Niners are the best team. Then you got some banged up players. 3 games go by, they lose 3 games in a row. Brock Purdy's trash. The Niners are done. No, and we're doing this with Kansas City as well. Kansas City is what? They've lost 3 of the last 4. It appears that they would be on the outside looking in as far as when we're looking at it from the championship level from the AFC. But every single year, we seem to do this with Mahomes, and we did it with Brady. Oh, you started 1-4, with the Pats. Going to blow it up. And we did this 10 years ago. We did it 10 years ago with Brady and Belichick. And we're doing it again now with Mahomes and Reed. If you don't look great, if you don't look dominant every single week, we start to question how good you are and when is the fall off. I'm still taking Kansas City versus the field in the AFC until otherwise is proven to me. But that's just me. So this Aaron Rodgers thing has been ridiculous. The up and down, the inconsistency, which usually we don't get from him, especially on the field. We've had one or two down years from Aaron Rodgers, but overall, what you get from him as a person and his personality, it's largely stayed the same. But what we do is if you're winning, you're allowed to act a certain way, which when Green Bay was winning division title after the division title and won a Super Bowl and the regular season Aaron Rodgers was great, we let him know how great he was and how much we didn't think of Mike McCarthy. Now, don't get me wrong, I still don't think that Mike McCarthy is a great coach. They seem to be on the same page now because Dallas is clicking, but this goes back to every argument that I've ever done. You are who you are until you aren't that anymore. Dallas is good. I know they're good, but I've never once put them in this elite category. They seem to be on the way there, but I'm not going to do what I just did with the Lions because I did that 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I said, the Lions might be the third best team in the conference. They're not. They just aren't. So to get back to Aaron Rodgers, we have this misconception, not even misconception, I think, because I feel like most of us believe that he thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room. He tries to tell you that he's the smartest guy in the room. But what he also tries to do is that there's this condescension of, I'm going to try to do something just because I think that I can. Or spin the narrative when I don't think I can anymore. I have this convenient out. And the Jets have been this to a T for him. Running out of the tunnel with the American flag, Monday Night Football, him going down 4 snaps in, but the Jets still winning. Then him saying, I'm going to come back, I'm going to play this season. But we're not hearing a whole lot of that anymore. It's always this back and forth of, I want to play for my teammates. I want to do what's best for the organization. If they were still in the playoff mix, I believe that you would have seen Aaron Rodgers this year. For one reason or another, one of two things, because he would have either A, wanted to show you I can defy science, or even if he were to come back and be defying science would just be back on the field, period. Not even the fact that he'd have to be good, just being there. But if he were to come back and be good, he would be the most unrelenting version of Aaron Rodgers that we've ever seen, regardless of what you think about his political views, regardless of the ayahuasca, regardless of his vaccine, regardless of what version of him that you like the least, you would have seen the most over-the-top, just abhorrent version of Aaron Rodgers had he come back and been actually good. But now he gets to play both sides of the coin. He can say, yeah, I can come back. And if he does come back this season because they're out of contention, he'll still say, I beat science. I'm built different. I'm that guy. I'm him. But if he passes on it, he'll say, you know what? I want to do what's right for the team, get 100% healthy. And he's just going to bypass it, slide under the rug, and just move along about his day. He's really done it the best way that you can for having that kind of injury, talking the way that he did, wanting to come back and make it look at this this faux version of heroism, he's played it perfectly. Like, and he really can't lose. Unless he doesn't play next year. I have a feeling that it will, though. Anyway, that has been today's episode. I actually get off the mic soon because I have another podcast interview in about 30 minutes. We got to wrap things up and get ready for them. You guys have been chopping with Peace Guy. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the YouTube channel as well. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about hide your kids, hide your wives. We'll be on the microphone. It's really going to be tough to tell, but maybe Sunday morning before the early games, depending on how everything else works out. You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. We'll catch you guys on the next one.